finishing the final technical pieces of starting our streaming onto YouTube. So I'll ask everyone just to hold tight for 1 more minute while we get all the pieces in place. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to the 110th Annual General Meeting of Scouts Canada and our first entirely digital or entirely virtual AGM. It is great to have so many people attend and be able to join from across the country. There are participants, voting members in the Zoom session, and the AGM is being live streamed on YouTube as well. For which there will be a short delay while that catches up with live proceedings. Using technology is not new at our AGM. We've been broadcasting our annual general meeting since 2009, but we usually have a critical mass of people in the room. Today, everybody is remote, and I ask you to bear with us as we leverage the technology and as we use Zoom and YouTube. Should I lose connectivity, Adam Benson, the Vice Chair, is a heartbeat away in case anything happens with my Wi-Fi connection, and my kids have been told no downloading for the next little while. So bear with us, but I'm looking forward to a very good AGM, and thank you all for joining. Laura Jarvis is our National Elections Officer. Delighted to have Laura join us. Laura will oversee the voting that will take place during this AGM and has asked that we test the voting before we jump into proceedings. And this will give everybody a chance to see how it works, to test using Zoom functionality. So we are going to open voting for you all, and you will see how it works within Zoom. So Kaylee and Mark, I'll ask you to bring up the vote onto the screen. This is an important test question. Please consider it very carefully. Bacon should be served at all camps. Please vote yes or no or abstain. After you voted, click the submit button. And we'll just take a moment. After we vote on each motion, we'll pause. That will allow all the votes to be calculated in Zoom, and then once Laura sees that everybody has voted, she'll announce the results. It's okay for us to take time on this. This is an important question.
Mr. Chairman, the voting has concluded. 79% of our voters say that all camps should have bacon served at them.
Excellent.
And it takes about 35 seconds for us to get across Canada to get all of our voters in. So there will be about a 45-second delay from the time we post a poll until I call the results have come in. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I believe we just mandated that only bacon can be eaten at camp. I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to check the recording on that. Thank you, Laura. And before we jump into the formal parts of the AGM, I do want to recognise Laura Jarvis, Kaylee Canosa, and Mark Chamberlain for the massive amount of work that they've put into planning all aspects of the AGM, making sure that our technology works, setting up the voting, dealing with logistics, and being on hand to manage everything throughout this afternoon. So a huge thank you to you. Thank you, team. We'll now start the formal portion of the AGM. I will ask Tim Welch, our National Commissioner, to lead us in a moment's silence to remember those who have gone home. Tim.
Thank you, Richard. I'm going to read out the names of those that we have, and I also, during the moment of silence, I recommend that you think about those you know yourself. Scouter Jerry Crawford, Scouter Janice Coburn, Rick Provo, Paul Martell, Aria McDougall McLean, Aaron Timmers, Aline Tarbhai, Stanley Chan, Frank Bunny Ireton, Richard Rick Isaac, Ken Carey, Cynthia Bernard, John Gillard, Don Copan, Fred White, Gladys Hall, and to all from our scouting community who have gone home, I ask you to join me in a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I'll pass this over to Andrew Price in his role as Corporate Secretary to share correspondence and regrets.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's no correspondence to report, but I do bring regrets from David Hustis, Dale Hooper, and Andrew Molson, all honorary officers of Scouts Canada.
Thank you. And approval of the minutes from the last AGM, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move that the minutes of the 109th meeting of the Corporation of Scouts Canada held on November 16th, 2019, as circulated, be approved.
Thank you. Can I have someone second? I see in the chat Spencer Julian. Spencer, thank you for seconding the motion. I will call the motion and open voting, please, on the approval of the minutes as circulated. Laura? If everyone can please vote.
Mr. Chair, the motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Motion carried. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, everybody, for bearing with us as we recognize the delay to allow everybody to vote across the country and deal with any lag on the system. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the report from the Board of Governors that I am pleased to deliver. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm very pleased to present the report from the Board of Governors for the Scouting year just finished. I plan to touch on our response to the COVID pandemic and the impact it has had on our organisation, on the steps taken by the board to drive greater engagement with Scouters across the country, focusing heavily on the council voting members, on the continued work on the property strategy, and on the need for us to do much more on the diversity and inclusion front. But first, a short reminder on the role of the board. The Board of Governors is the elected group of volunteers that form the senior governing body for Scouts Canada. We make sure the organisation has the right leadership in place, the NK3. With the NK3, we set strategic direction, and we ensure we have the right policies, controls, and risk management in place. There are 13 elected members on the board, and this past year, it has again included a mix of those new to Scouting, as well as long-standing Scouters, youth representation, and representation from across the country. Later in the AGM, there will be an election for the members of the board. And at this point, I wanted to say a big thank you to all candidates who have stepped forward and put your names forward for nomination. And thank you as well to those board members who are at the end of their time on the board for their massive contribution throughout their term. This year has been overshadowed by COVID, and we will have to continue to work under its shadow for some time to come. I'm pleased with how we've responded, moving quickly to stop in-person Scouting, and then putting in place a clear framework to reopen. Since the 1st of September, regions or councils have been able to determine their stance in line with the local guidelines, and we currently have a patchwork of in-person meetings and virtual sessions across the country. I think this is a very good example of our leadership providing a common framework while also giving flexibility to adapt for local policies or guidelines that may differ. I'm under no illusions at all that running virtual meetings is easy. In fact, I think it's hard, it's really hard. And I say that as an active Scouter. Before the summer, I helped them move online for both Cubs and Scouts in my group. And since September, I've been focused on our Scout troop. During that time, during both those times, I've had highs and lows as a Scouter. The highs come when we finish an online meeting and the youth have been engaged and they've clearly gotten something out of the meeting. They've benefited from being with their friends and doing something different. Scouting then is as relevant and important as ever, and we need to keep going. The lows come because it's different, because it's harder to communicate with every youth member through a screen, because we're all having an element of Zoom fatigue, and because we've always had such a strong outdoor and adventure element to what we do. There is indeed an out in Scouting. I would say stick with it. A tough, difficult online Scout meeting is better than no Scout meeting. Our youth members and their parents need us more than ever, and the programming and the support and everything that we do. And I would ask that everybody on the AGM and everybody in Scouting reflects, as you reflect on how hard and different this past year has been, know that we continue to make a difference. And I'd like to say a big thank you, a massive thank you to all the Scouters who have kept going and delivering Scouting throughout the COVID period. Earlier this year, the board undertook a program to drive greater engagement with Scouters, focusing first on council voting representatives. I'm delighted with how this has gone, reflected in record candidates and elections in the early summer, and great participation from the council voting reps since then. I also hope that this engagement will allow the council voting reps to share more locally within their councils as well. Most of the board are active Scouters, but having a reinvigorated group of fellow Scouters, including you, is a real boost, and I look forward to more engagement and dialogue. We've had a great boost from Scouters like Chris Nemeth helping think about the CVR role, and there's a motion coming up on the agenda to reflect both his thinking and the steps we've taken so far, which I urge you to support. One of the things that I've heard from voting members and Scouters and youth across Canada is the need to drive our membership numbers. I spoke about this at last year's AGM, saying we were approaching a tipping point. Before COVID, we were doing very well, really well. In mid-March, we were up almost 850 youth members over the previous year. I think that's a really positive story about growth, but we probably haven't trumpeted enough. The growth was driven by a focus on groups as the most important part of our organization. We've invested very heavily in group commissioner training, bringing new and tenured group commissioners together for those training programs, both in person and virtually. And we've been getting rave reviews on those courses. Along with a greater focus on group support for priority groups, I think this is really helping. Since March, COVID has impacted our numbers. We didn't take any new youth registrations between March and September, a period when we'd normally see approximately 1,500 new joiners. But we have to be optimistic that when things start to return to normal, we'll be able to pull similar levers and drive numbers once again. And when we do, it will be all hands on deck. In the past year, we've continued our focus on the goal of unlocking assets across Scouting. It continues to be a strategic imperative for the organization. Properties and land assets are a big component of this project. Did you know we have some 550 properties, but only a third are being used? We know we need to invest heavily to get our portfolio where it needs to be. And there's been great input from youth, Scouters and parents across Canada in the survey and in focus group, and that is helping shape the strategy. One thing we've been reminded of is the need to over-communicate and to bring everyone along with us. Properties understandably drive strong emotions. I know that's the case with me. We need to build in trust and transparency because there will be difficult decisions to make as we right-size the portfolio of locations. The board fully believes we need access to properties to enable Scouting adventures. We just need to make sure that they're the right properties with the right programming, the right mix of activities and tools, and that they're safe for all Scouts. In recent months, the board has spent a lot of time working on diversity and inclusion. That's included thinking hard about how we ourselves operate and act and how we represent what Scouting in Canada should look like. We have well-established values in Scouting, and I'm proud to be part of this organization. But we clearly have lots more to do to ensure that our values guide all of our interactions and all of our actions. Scouts Canada hasn't pursued inclusion with the diligence and passion that we could or should have. I've heard from a number of our members on that front, and I agree. We can and we must do better. There will be work for each of us, and I want to challenge you to think about inclusion with your local section, your group, and your council. That includes leading from the front on inclusion and on anti-racism. That includes working to ensure that all Canadians feel that they truly belong in Scouting. To wrap up, I'd like to again thank all the volunteers who make Scouting in Canada a reality. Your effort is immense and more so this year than any other year. A big thank you. A big thank you to everybody who helps make it happen, be they volunteers, staff, or our partners. With that, I will pause. I'll close my remarks and I will move acceptance of the report from the Board of Governors. Could I have somebody to second the report, please? Jeff Sauvé. Thank you, Jeff. So we will call the motion and voting will now open on the report of the Chair of the Board to the members. And please vote.
Mr. Chairman, the motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Some of you may have seen the cat appear in picture. She also approves of the report. At this point, I will call on the National Key 3 to present the report to the AGM from the Key 3. Over to Tim, Annabelle, and Andrew, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Happy to kick off our National Key 3 report to the membership for the year 2019-2020. Wanted to start with some highlights on the program side, and really, I know Rich has touched on it. Certainly this year has been punctuated by COVID and has required a tremendous amount of legwork, agility, flexibility on behalf of all of our volunteers and our staff teams as we pivoted from traditional scouting, outdoors, adventure, and really looked to continue scouting in new formats, whether they be virtual and a combination of outdoor programs and virtual. And it just honestly was really tremendous to see how our newly formed volunteer and staff program support team really jumped in and started developing tools to support virtual programming. Our Scouting at Home initiative that was able to provide parents and youth with weekly opportunities to continue scouting in their own backyard. Then shifting to making sure that there were tools available and programs available for outdoor scouting that could be conducted in keeping with our revitalized pandemic standards that many thousands of people chimed in and helped us to create. And ultimately seeing that flexibility pan out over the summer as groups looked at ways of innovating when they couldn't necessarily go camping, and seeing initiatives such as the Saskatchewan Wilderness Rendezvous Challenge that challenged scouts and scouters across the country to hike in a socially distanced manner, and over 500 individuals participated and hiked close to 13,000 kilometers through that challenge. We also saw our first and second national virtual campfires where, again, thousands of scouting members joined together and participated, contributed to what was an amazing campfire experience, albeit different from what we're used to. We also continue to provide, as I said, the Scouting at Home opportunities for families. We piloted some virtual summer camps. Many of our groups tried ways to keep the program alive. And ultimately, as Richard said, scouting we know is needed now more than ever. And many a parent wrote in or shared with us, and I'm sure they've shared with each and every one of you, just how impactful these opportunities were for many a young person. It brought a lot of laughter to a time where there wasn't necessarily a lot of laughter. It brought lots of smiles. It kept people engaged and active. It gave them opportunities to connect with their friends in ways they weren't doing on a day-to-day basis. We also saw the community continue to find innovative ways to engage with their community, to give back, to do the kinds of things that we challenge our scouts to do on a day-to-day basis to strengthen their communities, whether it be Insaya Darcy in BC, who painted Hope Rocks featuring Dr. Bonnie Henry's signature saying of be calm, be kind, be safe, and using those rocks to then raise funds for shut-in seniors at a number of the local residences. Just amazing. Or Scout Quinn Collender, who went viral with his appeal to create ear guards for our frontline responders. And you can see a number of youth here who picked up that challenge. And in fact, it garnered a significant amount of support around North America and even across the world. Just inspiring young people. The first Crestview Scout group, and I know there were many other Scout groups that reached out and found ways to collect food for those in need. And again, just a really meaningful reminder to everyone that Scouting is alive and well. Scouting continues to contribute, build strong citizens, and ultimately strengthen our communities.
Thanks, Andrew. And from the example that our youth provided, our scouters were also doing some amazing work and really working to be adaptable in this year of COVID. Our scouters provided a youth with a sense of normalcy, and that went right across the entire country with a lot of really creative program coming out. The image on your screen shows a scouter giving a top section award to a beaver, and putting a lawn sign on their lawn. This is particular images from Grimsby, but this happened right across the country, where the scouters would visit the home, put the award sign on the front lawn of the youth to recognize them for achieving their top section award. Another great example, the first Winona Scouts got their team together and visited an apiary to learn about bees and beekeeping, and did that in a safe and physically distanced way. The Cubs from the 10th Welland mastered kitchen skills and cooked meals for their families, thanks to the committed scouters. So the scouters helped them figure out how to cook meals while they're stuck at home. Some scouters even went as far as providing first aid skills training with the med vents. I think one of the most creative things that I saw was, and this happened in more than one place as well, beaver colonies getting together and having virtual camps in their backyard. So the parents would set up a tent, the beaver would get into the tent with their laptop or their iPad, and they would all watch the same movie via Netflix Party, which is a new Netflix capability that came out, where you can watch a movie and actually have a live chat at the same time. So the scouters really got inventive, and they've really supported our youth in trying to keep them involved and happy and still bearing with scouting during this unusual time. Next slide, please. So I think our group commissioners continued to the journey of supporting groups, and our group support model has continued through the course of this year. As Richard mentioned in his opening, we had 369 groups that have grown by more than 10%. We have over 605 groups with higher youth membership than the previous year, and every single one of these groups was assigned a relationship manager dedicated to helping the group commissioners in their role. And the feedback we're getting from this kind of support has been outstanding. We put this group support model in place because the group commissioners were asking for it, that they were looking for this kind of support, and now that it is here, they are very much appreciating it. We also talked about the focus on, when Richard spoke about it in his report from the board, he spoke about the orientation program, the in-person orientation program. 554 group commissioners have now graduated from that. Those group commissioners represent 49% of scouting youth, and over 90% of the group commissioners who attended recommend that training to others and carry that back into their councils and help other group commissioners and their section scouters do well in what they're doing. So we have seen a really positive result out of this focus on the group, at really focusing on the coal face, if you will, of the organization.
Thanks, Tim. I think, as we keep mentioning, COVID has had an impact on us that's been much larger than we thought. There's been a lot of research that's been done, and I think as you read through this slide, you'll come to the same conclusion that I did, which is scouting is needed now more than ever. The pandemic has created more disparity in our communities, and scouting addresses all of these concerns on this slide and so much more. I think even going on a hike with your section benefits youth not only physically, it gets them outside and outdoors, but it also improves their mental well-being. It allows them to socialize with their peers, and most importantly, it allows youth to have fun. Every little thing that we do as scouters is more critical now than ever, and I'd like to acknowledge how big of an impact every single one of you has had on our youth in this last year. Next slide. So we surveyed over close to 3,000 parents to find out what really matters most to them during COVID. And I think it's no surprise to all of us that getting outdoors is the #1 motivation for parents when they enroll their kids in scouting. 95% of people trust that Scouts Canada can deliver on their goals for their children. I think we can all agree that we're all eager to be getting back and getting outside and scouting, and that the steps that we're taking are going to get us to that place. Working in small groups like our patrol system allows our youth to work together as a team and gain all of the leadership skills. And I think we'd just like to, as a National Key 3, thank you for everything that you're doing and your commitment and passion and dedication to our program.
Thank you very much, Tim, Annabelle, and Andrew. Annabelle, would you like to move acceptance of the report, please?
I would.
Thank you. Can I have someone on the second chat, please? Thank you, Greg Peach. Thank you for seconding that motion. I'll call the motion, please, for approval, but the report of the Key 3 be accepted. Voting is open. Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Laura. I can confirm the motion passes 99% in favor. Thank you. And I have received a question from a couple of voting members to confirm the voting percentages for the previous motions. On the motion to approve the minutes of the 109th annual general meeting, 98% yes. And on the motion to accept the report from the Board of Governors, 99% yes. Thank you. Thank you to our Key 3. We'll now move forward to the next portion of the agenda of the AGM, which is the nomination of members to the Board of Governors as part of the report from the Nominating Committee. The Nominating Committee is a group of voting members that are selected at an AGM, and they work to put forward a slate of candidates to fill positions on the Board of Governors, both at large and officer positions. That slate of candidates is sent to all voting members well in advance of the AGM, and at that point, additional nominations can be received where they are supported by 5 voting members. This year, we have 2 additional nominations. So that means we will have a series of votes in the coming minutes on the various positions for the Board of Governors. As I said in my opening remarks, I'd like to thank everybody who has put their name forward or who has nominated somebody for election today. It is greatly appreciated. I will hand over to Heather McCracken. Heather is a member of the Nominating Committee. She, along with Clinton, Sean, Doug, and Andrea, were selected at the last AGM. So Heather will now present the motions to fill the positions on the Board of Governors. Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to begin by moving the approval by the voting members of the Nominating Committee's recommendation for Andrew Obie of Oakville, Ontario as Chair of the Board, Steve Kent of Mount Pearl, Newfoundland as Vice Chair, Strategic, Carrie Onken of Mission, BC as Vice Chair, Finance, Tim Welch of Ottawa, Ontario as National Commissioner, and Annabelle Loader of Ottawa, Ontario as National Youth Commissioner.
Great. Thank you, Heather. Thank you for moving. Can I have somebody second that, please? Spencer Craddock, thank you very much for seconding. I'll call the motion and please open the voting. Thank you, everybody. Please vote. Thank you. The motion is carried with 91% voting yes. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Heather. Heather, back to you, please.
All right. I would like to move the approval by the voting members of the nominating committee's recommendation of Mark Jocelyn as the honorary legal counsel, Andrew Price as executive commissioner and CEO, and Richard Thomas of Toronto, Ontario as the past chair of the board to be officers of the Scouts Canada Corporation.
Thank you, Heather. May I have someone second that, please? David Franklin. David, thank you for seconding. I'll call the motion. Please open the voting. Thank you. The motion is carried. 91% yes. Thank you, everybody. Heather, back to you, please.
So consistent with Partners for Canadian Scouting Agreement signed by Scouts Canada on September 21st, 2012, I would like to move approval by the voting members of the nominating committee's recommendation of Christine Dupuy of Memramcook, New Brunswick, as the representative for l'Association du Scouts de Canada on Scouts Canada's Board of Governors.
Thank you very much, Heather. And I see a second on the screen from Kate Abrahamson. Thank you, Kate. I'll call the motion. Open the voting, please. Thank you. The motion is carried. 96% yes. Heather, please.
Consistent with Article 5B9 of the bylaw, which outlines the requirements for youth representation on the Board of Governors, I would like to move approval by the voting members of the nominating committee's recommendations relating to Carly Tiller, St. Thomas, Ontario, and Brigida Schuler, East St. Paul, Manitoba, in addition to Annabelle Loader, National Youth Commissioner.
Thank you, Heather. Could I have somebody second that motion, please? Ruben D'Souza. Thank you, Ruben. I'll call the motion and voting open. And the motion is carried, 98%. Thank you. And Heather?
Consistent with Article 5B8 of the bylaw, which outlines the requirements for geographic representation on the Board of Governors, I would like to move approval by the voting members of the nominating committee's recommendation relating to Robert Craddock, Alberta and Northwest Territories, and Jean-Francois Champagne of Quebec.
Thank you, Heather. Can I have somebody second the motion, please? Sandy Burns, thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Voting is open. Thank you. The motion is carried with 93% yes. Thank you. Heather?
Mr. Chair, at this time given, there are 5 candidates for 4 remaining member-at-large positions of the Board of Governors. I confirm that an election is required.
Thank you very much, Heather. Thank you. At this time, I will ask that all voting members indicate your support for up to 4 nominees for the 4 at-large positions on the Board of Governors. Voting is now open.
Mr. Chairman, the successful candidates are, in alphabetical order, Adam Benson with 77%, Heath Johnson with 79%, Kathleen Provost with 91%, and Bill Schulte with 78%.
Heather?
I move the approval by the voting members of the nominating committee's recommendation respecting the election of the 5 honorary officers with voting rights and the 129 honorary members non-voting of the Scouts Canada Corporation.
Thank you. May I have someone to second, please? Justin Chenier. Thank you, Justin. I'll call the motion. Voting open. Thank you. The motion is carried, 89% yes. Thank you. This now concludes the process to select members of the Board of Governors. Heather, thank you very much for taking us through that, and thank you to you and all the other members of the nominating committee for all of your work throughout the process. Thank you. We'll now move to the next step of the agenda, which is the selection of voting members to serve on the nominating committee. The way this works is voting members can nominate another voting member to serve on the nominating committee. You must be a voting member of the corporation, and at least one of the 3 voting members that will be selected today must be a youth member. So that's a minimum requirement. All 3 can be youth, but at least one can be youth. Please nominate council voting representatives using the chat function. You can do this by typing in the name of a person you nominate with a statement saying, I nominate person X. Once we've received those, I will check in with everybody that they are willing and able to stand for that position. And you can confirm that's the case simply by saying yes in the chat. We'll then post the names of the nominees on the screen and ask everyone to vote. And you'll be able to vote for up to 3 candidates. At that point, the youth member with the highest number of votes will automatically be elected, followed by the next 2 candidates with the largest number of votes, be they youth or adult. So the chat is open for nominations. Thank you. Remember, please do type a person's nomination name into the chat, and we'll collect all those nominees, and then I'll ask each nominee if they wish to stand. And then if you've been nominated, please respond yes, no in the chat. This will take us a moment or two to tabulate, so please do bear with us while that happens. Okay, and thank you. I will now close the call for nominations. And I will read out the names, confirm the names of the nominees. If your name is called, will you please type yes in the chat to confirm that you are willing and able to stand for the election. At that point, all the names will be tabulated and voting will be opened up after the next section. Nominees include Sandy Burns, Chris Nemeth, David Frederick, Mike Eibel, Spencer Julian, Evelyn Robertson, Eric Ennis, Derek Robertson, Justin Chenier, Peter Mills, Richard Wilmers, Carly Tiller, Tyler Coleman, Quinn McKinney, David Franklin, Samantha Saini, and Heather McCracken.
Oh my goodness.
A great election. It's exactly the type of thing that is good to see. Thank you everybody for being, for nominating somebody, and thank you to those who have been nominated. As I said, if I called your name or if you see your name on the chat, please type yes to confirm that you're ready, willing, and able to stand. It will take some minutes for us to tabulate this part of the vote and put it into the Zoom voting function. So we will return to this portion of the election in a few moments after the voting has been put together, and hopefully they will all fit on one page. Bear with us while that happens. So while the team does that, we will move forward to the next item of the agenda. These motions presented to the members on behalf of the board. I spoke earlier in my remarks around steps taken by the board to drive much greater engagement with council voting members or council voting representatives. And this has been a real focus of the organization in the past year. I'm really delighted with how that has gone. And many of you have attended sessions last night on finance, again on finance, and then broader engagement across different topics today, including properties, diversity, and volunteer support. This is a key focus for the board, and I suspect it will continue to be a key focus given the tremendous success we've had so far. In addition to the work done by the board, work has also been done by a number of voting members to support and accelerate this. And I'm delighted that Chris Nemeth will support the following motion that I will read and that Chris will second. So if we can put the motion on the screen, please, Kaylee or Mark. Perhaps Mark, if you can pull the motion up. And while it's coming up, I will read it out loud. In accordance with Article 3(1) Part 2, the board recommends adoption of the following resolution. Be it resolved that the voting members support and endorse steps taken by the board to drive engagement with council voting members, as outlined in the board's position paper, including establishing and maintaining channels of communication, promoting in-council interactions with Scouters and youth, and funding attendance at the annual general meeting, and that such steps be reflected in Scouts Canada's policies and procedures as required. Okay, I will move this motion, and having spoken to Chris Nemeth previously, Chris Nemeth as a seconder. I think we will call the motion, please. If we can put the motion text up on the screen, please, Mark, and then open voting.
Coming.
I'll just ask everybody to bear with us for a moment. The massive number of names for the nominating committee is slowing things down. There we go. Thank you. I see the motion on the screen. Thank you. Mark, perhaps you can open the voting, please.
It's coming very shortly. Give it a
Excellent.
Kaylee's working on that while I've got this going.
Do you want me to launch the poll?
Yes, please.
Sorry.
No problem at all. I know there's a lot of moving parts right now. Thank you very much. Everyone, voting is open on the motion presented to the members on behalf of the board. Please vote. Excellent. And that motion is passed. Thank you with 99%. Thank you very much. Let's take down the screen, please, and perhaps come back to me. Thank you. As the voting for the nominating committee continues to be tabulated, we will move forward to item 10 on the agenda. I will ask Kerry Onken to take us through the financial pieces. This builds on the discussion we had yesterday evening and again this morning on the financial statements and the auditor's report. I'll hand it over to Kerry Onken, who is Vice Chair of Finance. Kerry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move that the auditor's report for the Scouts Canada National Operations dated November 4th of 2020 that was presented last night be accepted, and that the financial statements of the national operations of Scouts Canada for the year ending August 31st, 2020 be accepted.
Thank you, Kerry. So moved. And I think I have Mike Eibel. Thank you, Mike, for seconding that. I will call the motion. Please put the motion text on the screen and please open the voting.
All right.
Okay, and Mark, if you can bring up the vote, please. Thank you. I see the motion is on the screen and voting is open on the auditors.
Mr.
Actually,
Chair,
no, please. Actually, we will stop that. That is not the correct vote because the motion that we are voting upon is the acceptance of the auditor's report and approval of the financial statements for the year just ended. Thank you. The vote is on the screen.
Sorry.
Voting is open. Thank you. And the motion is approved, 96% yes. Thank you very much. I will now hand it back to Kerry for the motion on the appointment of auditors.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move that the firm of Kelly, Hubers, and McNeely be appointed as auditors for the national operation for the year ending August 31st, 2021.
Kerry, thank you. Can I have someone second that motion, please? Heath Johnson. Heath, thank you. I will call the motion on the appointment of the auditors. If we can bring up the vote, please. Voting open. Thank you very much. The motion is carried with a yes of 96%. Thank you. Kerry, I'll hand it back to you, please, for the approval and adoption of the annual report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move that the annual report of the national operation of Scouts Canada for the year ending August 31st, 2020 be adopted.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Can I have someone to second that motion, please? Ron Plandon. Ron, thank you. I'll call the motion on the approval of the annual report. And can we open voting, please? Voting is open. Thank you. And the motion is carried with yes, 98%. Thank you. And thank you, Kerry. While the poll election for the nominating committee continues to be set up in the background, we'll move to other business. And at this point, I'd love to recognize two special guests. Etienne Boisvert, president of the Association des Scouts du Canada. Etienne sends his greetings and is pleased to bring best wishes from our fellow partners in Scouting in Canada. I'm also delighted to welcome Dennis Kwan, who will speak to bring greetings from the Canadian Fellowship of DP Guilds. Dennis, over to you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I bring greetings from the Canadian Fellowship of Bidding Power Guilds. We wish you all a very successful annual general meeting. And in fact, it is going quite well. 2020 is a very special year. Due to COVID-19, we were not able to meet our family and friends as we used to. Many of our activities have to be stopped and postponed. Among our members, we have kept in touch and share our experience. Some of us will turn back to the telephone to keep in touch, and some move forward with virtual meetings to continue with our service to our communities. It is difficult, but we do look forward and plan our programs after the pandemic. The Canadian Fellowship of Bidding Power Guilds have been a strong supporter for the Scout Canada Scholarship Program. In 2020, I'm happy to report that we are able to sponsor one more scholarship to our Scouting youth. Now we are offering 3 annual scholarships. We believe the best investment is to invest in our youth. We are Scouters who like to meet our new friends and keep our old friends. We like to pass on what we learn to others and make this world a better place for all. This year, we have 42 guilds with 570 members across Canada. We share our fellowship and serve our communities with service programs. If you'd like to join us or like more information on the fellowship, please visit our website. On behalf of the Canadian Fellowship of Bidding Power Guilds, we wish you all well and thank you all for your hard work to keep the Scouting spirit alive in Canada. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you very much. That is Excellent greetings and excellent news. Thank you so much. At this point, we'll move to the confirmation of acts. And this is probably the longest motion in the AGM. So I'll ask the team to bring up the motion text for the confirmation of acts, please. No, if we can have the motion text, please, before the vote. Thank you. So this motion states, be it resolved that all acts, bylaws, proceedings, appointments, elections, and payments made, done and taken by the Board of Governors, the National Leadership Team members since the last annual meeting of the Corporation, referred to in the minutes of these bodies, at the annual general meeting, or of the annual reports, or in any way connected with the day-to-day business of the Corporation, are hereby approved and confirmed. Can I have someone please move that motion and someone please second that motion in the text? Spencer Julian moved, thank you, and seconded Ruben D'Souza. Spencer and Ruben, thank you very much. I will call the motion. Please open the voting. Voting open. Thank you. I can confirm the motion carried with a yes vote of 95%. Thank you. Mark, perhaps you can take down your screen. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for bearing with us as we march through the agenda while the team in the background pulls together the election for the nominating committee for the coming year. This is a phenomenal response and in line with the response for the elections earlier this year for council voting reps, where we had a huge number of candidates. I'm delighted that we have an equally large number or an equally strong response for the nominating committee. The way this will work is in a moment, a screen will come up showing the names of people who were nominated, who are eligible and who have accepted. I'll ask you to please vote for 3 people, up to 3 people on the names. You can vote for up to 3 names that you will see on the screen. After voting, the voting is closed. Our elections officer will identify that we have elected at least 1 youth member plus 2 additional members. Okay, Kaylee, could you please bring up the list of names, please? Thank you. Now, I will just note that depending on the size of your device, you may need to scroll down to see all the different names that are on there. You'll see them presented in 2 blocks, and there's no difference between the 2 blocks other than fitting on a page. Please vote for up to 3 candidates to serve on the nominating committee, and voting is open. Okay. Voting members, it looks like we have a small issue with the vote and a couple of people commenting they're unable to select more than 1 person on the list. So we will pause, we will fix that problem and then we will put the vote back up. So I will be asking everybody to vote again once we've fixed that issue. The votes that you cast a moment ago will not be tabulated and counted, and we will reopen the vote with that issue fixed. Please bear with us for a moment. and reflect that this is a good thing with so many people stepping forward. So while the team pulls together the voting sheet, I do have a question from a voting member, Jeff Preems. Thank you for your question, Jeff. The question is, given this is a virtual forum, can I please confirm that we have quorum? Yes, I can confirm that we have quorum. We have 78 attendees and 11 panelists. And as you know, attendance to the Zoom meeting was restricted to eligible voting members. And as the team pulls it together, I do have another question from the floor from Paula Keeley, voting member. Will the youth rep be voted separately? No, all names will be together on the same ballot, and the youth member with the highest number of votes is automatically elected, plus 2 other members with the highest number of votes. But all candidates appear together on the slate. You can vote for up to 3 candidates. And perhaps next year we'll do this at the start. And thank you everyone for bearing with us while we pull this together. Okay, it looks like we're getting pretty close. Thank you everyone for bearing with us. I'm seeing some commentary around requesting entertainment during the AGM, and a request for Mark in particular to sing Ginganguli. That's possible. I would need a formal motion for that to happen. That's a pretty quick response.
Hela Shayla, Hela Shayla, Hela, Oh.
This is absolutely democracy in action in real time. Okay, I think we're pretty close to going. So a big thank you to Mark and Kaylee and Laura for pulling this together in real time. It is excellent that this has happened because it really reflects on the strong interest and enthusiasm and engagement. But as I said, I and the board have been really hopeful that we were hoping for and we were looking to see. So,
Rich, we're ready whenever you are.
Excellent. I'll stop talking and then we'll bring it up. Thank you for the hint. Let's bring up the poll. So here we see the poll. Please, it will again in 2 sections. Please select up to a total of 3 candidates for the nominating committee. Voting is open. Okay, so it does look like a couple of folk are having issues hitting submit, so I apologize for the challenge there. Please bear with us, we may need to run this again. Yeah, okay, it looks like we've hit a technical snag in that the number of candidates spill across 2 questions, and if a voting member wishes to select candidates from just one part of the list, it won't allow you to hit submit, which is obviously not what we want. We need you to be able to select from the entirety of the names on the list. So I will cancel the vote. Thank you for bearing with us as we deal with this. and we will look to fix this in a moment. Please bear with us. I will suggest that we recess the meeting for 5 minutes. So I think everybody can take a short break. And in fact, we will reconvene the meeting at 3:25 Eastern time. So it's now 3:18 by my clock. 3:25, we will come back out of recess. So I'll ask everyone to please pause, please stay by your machine, but we are in recess until 3:25 p.m. And hi there, welcome back. Hope everybody is doing okay. We will come out of recess in just a moment. The team is just fixing the issue on the voting, and we will be ready to go in a moment or two. The way that the voting process will work is there will be a slide on the screen that you will be able to see. The slide will list the names of all the nominees who accepted the nomination. Thank you for the clarifying notes in the comments there. The names will also include a note on which is a youth nominee or not. You'll then be able to vote for up to 3 of the nominees to serve on the nomination committee. The way that the software works is there's a maximum limit on the number of voting options. And because democracy is great, we have exceeded the limit on the system. So the names will be split across 2 polls or 2 votes. You will be able to vote for up to 3 people across those 2 polls. So we'll just hold on for a moment and the team will come back up. And just to recap, you'll see a list of all the successful nominees, including a note on who is a youth member. And then voting will open. There'll be 2 voting questions. So if you don't see your preferred names in the first question, they will come up in the second question. And you can vote for up to a maximum of 3 candidates across those 2 questions. Then we'll tabulate the votes, and the 3 candidates with the most total votes will be elected. And as before, no change. We will include at least 1 youth member in the results. So I thank you everybody for bearing with us during this, and we will be up and running very shortly. Thank you for bearing with us. I appreciate your patience, everybody, as we pull it together. Okay, I think we're pretty close to coming out of recess, so I'll ask everybody to please stand by. So the slide will come up on your screens in just a moment. I can confirm that we will now come back out of recess. So the meeting is resumed. Thank you for everybody bearing with us. As I was saying a moment ago, we will present a slide on the screen with all the names of the candidates. We'll ask for one final confirmation, but it looks good from the nominees. The list of names will include a note against those people who are a youth candidate. And then we will open up the voting across 2 different questions, and please vote for up to 3 candidates across those 2 voting questions. After that, we will tabulate the results, and the highest voting youth member plus 2 others will be elected. I think we're pretty close to being ready, so thank you again for bearing with us. Okay, we're just trying one last thing, just bear with us a sec. I'll just point out that typing jokes into the chat is not helping me keep a straight face. Particularly that joke. Thank you. Okay, so the team is telling me by message that we are struggling with the voting capabilities in Zoom. So what we'll do is we will put up the list of candidates on the screen for everybody to look at. And then following the adjournment of this AGM, all voting members will be sent a link to vote electronically online outside of the Zoom application. So this screen is now coming up. If we can bring up the screen to full, thank you. Okay. So hopefully people can see the list of names on the screen there. I will read them out. Sandy Burns, Tyler Coleman, youth. Justin Chenier, youth. Derek Robertson, Eric Ennis, youth. Mike Eibel, David Frederick, Spencer Julian, youth. Quinn McKinney, youth. Chris Nemeth, Evelyn Robertson, youth. Samantha Saini, youth. Carly Tiller, youth. Heaven McCracken, youth. And Richard Willimus. Thank you guys for confirming. If your name is on the list and you do not wish to continue to accept the nomination, please confirm through the chat. So just to reconfirm the next step in the process, because of the issue with the Zoom poll, immediately following the close of the AGM, you will receive by email a link to an online vote that will allow you to vote for up to 3 candidates. That voting will remain open until 7 p.m. Eastern time to allow you some time to make that vote. Okay. Thank you. So if we can reconvene. Thank you, everybody. So I appreciate everybody bearing with us during the technical challenges that we've had. As I said, I think it's actually a good thing, and I'd much rather see too many candidates for the system to handle than not enough candidates for us to be able to handle. So thank you very much for bearing with us. I'd like to wrap up with some closing remarks. This has been a fairly full weekend. We started last night with a walkthrough of the financials, and we've had a couple of great sessions throughout the day today before the formal AGM to engage with council voting members. And I'm delighted, as I said in my remarks, with how that engagement has proceeded, and delighted with the dialogue and the debate and the discussion and the passion that comes through for Scouting. So I'd like to thank everybody who's participated in votes. I'd like to thank everybody who participated in the voting in the AGM and who has either put somebody forward or who has agreed to stand for the nominating committee. As I say, this is excellent success. I'm really pleased with how this has turned out. There being no formal business more for the AGM, I will move to adjourn the meeting. The motion to adjourn does not require a seconder, so I will just ask for people to accept the motion to adjourn by typing yes into the chat.
And just before we do that, Mr. Chair, there is another point of business that we would like to put on the floor of the meeting. With that, I'll turn it over to Steve Kent.
Thank you. I won't sing this time. Rich, as you conclude your term as chair of the Board of Governors, it feels fitting to say a few words about your immense contribution to Scouting, particularly in recent years. You are clearly, in my view, the most effective chair that I've worked with on the Board of Governors. And one thing that many of us know about Rich, and maybe some of you don't know, is that he's a Scouter true and true, and is very grounded in the reality of still being a very active Scouter in his local group in Toronto, where he's very much an active Scouter and a well-respected Scouter among all those that work with him. When I was sitting here today thinking about what to say about Richard, a number of words come to mind. Honest, strategic, fair, respectful, compassionate, diplomatic, principled, inclusive, gentle most of the time, courageous, thoughtful, and fun. Rich is all of those things and more. He's the kind of leader that the board and the organization has really needed for the last few years. Rich, I can say, and I know many others that are here today could say, that your leadership has had a tremendously positive effect on Scouting in Canada. And I can also say with confidence that your fellow board members are very, very grateful for your leadership, for your contribution, and for your friendship and mentorship. For who you are, for what you've done for Scouting, and what I know you'll continue to do for Scouting, and for the difference you've made on the Board of Governors and through your leadership in Scouts Canada. On behalf of your fellow board members, I want to say a very, very sincere thank you. And we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thanks, Steve, for your comments. I would like to echo a few of those things as I have worked or had the opportunity, the pleasure, the privilege even of working with Richard really closely over the last number of years. I would echo many of those words and attributes that you raised, Steve. I think what really did strike me in all of our conversations is Rich, as you said, is an absolutely dedicated Scouter, first and foremost. And he's always looking at how to make things better. He really does keep the youth and the experience, the volunteers front and center. He's the kind of person that isn't seeking out the credit, but is never reluctant to jump in, get his hands dirty, make sure that the job that needs to be done gets done. And I know from talking to some of the scouters in his own group that he is one of those scouters that pops in. He just has that knack of knowing when help is needed. And he's the person that's there to make sure, whether it's a volunteer appreciation event, whether it's a fundraiser, whether it's a makerspace activity for the youth, or whether it's a camp, that it's going to go over well and that everybody is going to have a good time. I know that many, again, of the scouters in Rich's group look to him for advice, as I know many of us on the board, myself included, do as well. Rich, you've definitely blessed the organization with your leadership and your contributions, and I know that you'll be missed, but it's great that you're going to be around to continue to bring that strategy and that passion for scouting to the board conversations. I think it is quite telling, a couple of things that come to mind when I really want to encapsulate Rich. I got an email from his group commissioner not that long ago saying, it took a very long time for me to even know that Rich was on the board, because Rich is just a scouter in our group, just like any other. And I think, that's extremely telling. And the other thing, a very personal story from me, as a number of you know, I suffered a concussion not that long ago, and Rich was one of the first to reach out to ask me how things were going. But what, in true Rich style, right after I confirmed that I was okay, he said, "Let me know what I can do. If there's anything I can do to take the load off your plate, to make things easier, to make things move forward." And that's Rich, to a T. So Rich, thank you for everything that you've done. It's been a pleasure working with you. And on behalf of the organization, it's my pleasure to inform you that for your tremendous service to scouting, we will be recognizing you with the Bar to the Medal of Merit.
Thank you both. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It has been a fabulous pleasure and an honor to be on the board for the last several years and to have been the chair for the last 3 years. So this means a great deal. So thank you very much. It's wonderful. With that said, thank you. Let's now move to adjourn. I move for adjournment. If everyone can type yes, we can adjourn and move forward. And please check your email shortly after the conclusion of this AGM for a link to vote for the nominating committee members to serve for the coming year. Thank you very much, everybody. It looks like a huge move to adjourn, which is great. We are adjourned. Thank you. This now concludes the broadcast. We will now stop the Zoom stream and also stop the streaming on YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for your participation, and thank you for bearing with us throughout today. It is fantastic. Thank you.